Hey, what's going on?
What's going on, brother?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Hear me?
Hey, loud and clear. What's going on with you, man?
Man, it's busy, busy, busy. You know how it is.
That's
Just
good. That's good.
working.
That is good. So yeah, man. Hey, appreciate you coming on this thing, man. It'll be like 20 minutes or something.
All
So
right, cool.
kind of just get into your background and your business, things of that nature, and then we'll kind of let it go off in tangents a little bit, just so it's more natural. But
Cool.
yeah, it's just feel free. All right. So
All right.
all right, I'm gonna start this off. Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Tosin Oduwole with the Daily Hustle Entrepreneurs Edition, and I have a really, really good friend of mine. You guys may know him on Instagram by, I think it's Madu.
Yeah, money would do. Yeah.
Money Madu. What's going on, man? What's going on? Welcome to the Daily Hustle.
Hey, I appreciate it. I appreciate the invite. Yeah, with this show and everything, I'm glad to be a part of it. Just being a part of the entrepreneurs that inspire people. On the daily. So I'm glad to be on.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you on because we're kind of in the same line of work as far as like the equity space, the fund space. So really, really looking forward to kind of getting into details about what you got going on and what you see in the future. So just I guess kind of just kicking things off, man. So you're in Houston, right? Or Dallas?
Yeah, Houston, Texas.
Were you like born and raised out there or?
Yeah, man. So I was born and raised in Houston. Pretty much lived here most of my life. I moved out to San Antonio, which is like 2.5, 3 hours away for college, and then I got a job out in West Texas after I graduated. And then after that, I was able to move back to like the suburb areas of Houston, like Houston area, pretty much, because I had a refinery job out down there, kind of like closer to Galveston. And yeah, in 2019, I finally moved back into the city. So yeah, just Houston through and through, man. This is my home base. Like I could have properties, many other places, but Houston, I love it. I can't move.
Yeah, I've been to Houston one time in like 2015 because I told myself that I was gonna move out of New Jersey, and I was
Mhm.
like, it's either gonna be Houston or Miami. But I was like, yo, I gotta go there first just to see it, just so I get a feel. I went to Houston first. I loved it, but I was like, I'm not making my decision until I check out Miami. And I went to Miami, and I was like, Miami wins.
It's crazy. I've never been to Miami yet.
Oh man, it's like I think it's like an hour and a half flight from Houston. It's close,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
But yeah, so you mentioned that you had a refinery job earlier. Is that something that you got coming out of college? Is that something you went to school for, or how'd you fall into that?
Yeah, so I graduated with an electrical engineering degree. And so when I graduated from college, I got a job as a project engineer at a building materials company. So when you see like sheetrock or wallboard, that I worked at a company that manufactured that product. And then so after that job, the next job that I had was a refinery job down in Texas City, Texas. And yeah, just doing a similar type of work. I was what they call an E&I engineer, electrical and instrumentation engineer. And yeah, that job was pretty interesting. Because with the refinery, you go out in the field a lot. So like if you're working on projects, you're walking up all these scaffolding, uh, you know, gas, 100 pounds of gas, 400 pounds of gas flowing around you, heat everywhere. But it was a crazy experience, but it was a good experience as well.
So is it stereotypical to think of Texas as like oil everywhere, or is that just from TV?
Houston, Texas.
And so
Houston, Texas, you get that's definitely a true thing. When they talking about like old oil money,
yeah,
it's definitely true with Houston.
I remember a TV show. I want to say it was like the first generation of Dynasty. That
Mhm.
was, I think it took place in Texas, and it was like a family that got super wealthy from oil or something like that. And I just always, when I used to think of Texas, I always thought like American oil for some reason.
Right. Yeah, I mean, so like, Houston obviously is the base where a lot of big companies deal with oil are like hubbed at. But when you go to West Texas, when it comes to the drilling, that's where a lot of the oil comes into play.
Okay, so like prior to going to college, like let's kind of rewind it back and go back to like your childhood.
Mhm.
Um, were you somebody that, did you have any like hobbies or passions that you knew you wanted to do as a kid, or was it kind of just going with the flow and you kind of discovered who you were, what you wanted to do as you got a little older, or what was like your childhood like?
Well, so I'm a first generation Nigerian. So as far as childhood goes, I didn't really get to test a lot of things out
Yeah,
that a lot of other kids probably would have. Like for example, growing up, I didn't really get to play sports competitively like that. I always played like with intramurals and all that other stuff, but like the competitive sports side of things, I never really got to enjoy some of that there. But I always had this thing of building stuff, whether that's building up the first kind of computer that we ended up having in our family house. Like say if we were growing up, you're playing with toys, right? I'm building houses out of books. Our dad used to bring a lot of books home, so we're over here building houses, from books and stuff like that. So, things of that nature was something that I used to always do, but it wasn't until like the stuff that I kind of do now. Honestly, it wasn't until after college and just me doing a lot of research where I started finding out this is something that I really like when it comes to like real estate. Because the thing is, I always knew ownership was big, and I always wanted to own a lot of stuff.
yeah.
I just at that time didn't really know what to own. You know what I mean? So.
So like when you graduated high school, you thought like engineering?
Oh, yeah. Well, so my thought process with that, because the whole stereotype, especially with Nigerians, is you got to be a doctor, lawyer, engineer, right?
Yeah.
But it's actually crazy. At least with my family, I wasn't really forced into that. Me doing engineering was more so this made the most sense to make money out of college, so I don't have to rely on my parents.
Gotcha.
So it wasn't that, oh, my dad was like, oh, you must become an engineer. It was just like, oh, this makes the most sense.
Yeah.
And I was already like, I think the school that I was in, I think I was trying to do computer engineering. They didn't have that. So the next best thing I think or close to that was electrical. And that's pretty much how I ended up going into that route.
That's dope. So coming out of college, you're working as an electrical engineer. What is electrical engineering? Because when I hear electrical engineering, I think like not necessarily electrician, but like maybe creating or designing like the chips and stuff that go into electronics, or like what specifically is.
Yeah, no, so it's honestly a multitude of things. And to be honest, like once like the jobs that I've had, I never really had to use my degree until kind of when I went into the refinery side of things. Like, cause like as a project engineer, your job is more so just project management. And so, when it comes to the details of like the electrical portions of things of that nature, you're honestly hiring out a firm to do that job, and you're kind of like looking over not micromanaging, but managing a company and making sure that they're doing it correctly.
Hmm.
So yeah, it's not exactly electrician. Like I can't go in and wire a house or anything like that, like a trade does. But it would be smart if if anybody wants to do it, you make a lot of money doing that stuff. But yeah, it's more so the I wouldn't say tech, but just understanding like the base value of things of that nature.
Yeah, it was kind of similar for me growing up, also being first generation Nigerian. I wasn't really pushed into any direction. My dad was an architect and an engineer at the same time when I was a child, so I used to see him like with his squares. He made one of the bedrooms in our house like his room where he do all his architectural plans and stuff. And then he started doing engineering, computer engineering though.
Mhm.
And so at that time, most kids they want to be like their dad. So I wanted to be a computer programmer for the longest until I actually got to about maybe 11 or 12 when I started actually going outside on my own. And I kind of, I was lucky. I had a kind of an unconventional Nigerian upbringing. I had a lot of freedom as a kid, like a lot of freedom. Like I could go outside and be gone for as long as I wanted, come back at 9 p.m., 10 p.m. I mean, our neighborhood at the same time was kind of safe back then in the 90s, so it wasn't really too much to really worry about. Everybody kind of knew each other. But yeah, it wasn't until around that time that I got into like subwoofers and speakers.
Mm.
And so, because a lot of the kids, a lot of like the high school kids that were older than me, when they get their first cars, they put subwoofers in their cars, and you see them
Right,
being on
right.
the street. And you know, my first business idea was that I wanted to open a business that would sell subwoofer speakers. And so that was kind of like the first thing that I was thinking of doing. So you're working as an electrical engineer. How do you make that change to oil? Because that those seem like two totally separate industries. How do you jump from electrical engineering to oil refinery?
Yeah, so with electrical engineering, I mean, that can translate into any industry. It's just what type of role are you in the industry. So with oil, um, as a electrical engineer, you know, a lot of the things that you're doing, it kind of like goes into. So like my job was like electrical and instrumentation. So a lot of like pressure gauges,
Mm.
you know, steam trap lines, some of the tech that you kind of like put into like the substations and things of that nature. So like the stuff that kind of like powers that, all the information in there, you're kind of like having to deal with that information. So like there's just certain roles that kind of like plays in part of being like an engineer in an oil refinery.
So how many years were you in that line of work?
So I was there for so at the refinery I was there for 3 years.
3 years.
Three
So
years.
what ended it? Did you just say, you know what, had enough of this? I want to kind of go into entrepreneurship, or like what gave you that bug that said, okay, it's been 3 years, I'm out.
Yeah, so I during my time at the refinery, and this is probably around like 2017. Um, I started getting a bug of I can't be working for someone else,
Mhm.
and unfortunately for me, I just like every job. So I've had two jobs. Um, it was I had the job out in West Texas, and then I had the refinery job. The roles that I had there, even though they paid well, I did not like them. So it wasn't very like it wasn't like I could just lollygag around and coast. Like it just was not working for me. And I knew that pretty early on. And usually around the 2 year mark, I'm ready to, you know, do something different, do something new. And so in 2017, um, I ended up getting an MBA from Pepperdine, and so I wanted to kind of go into the like a business role a little bit. And the purpose of the MBA honestly was me kind of like having that foresight of, you know, I'm looking around. What do I want to be if I'm in a corporate role? I want to be in the executive leadership team, right? And you know, typically when you look at the people up there, they all typically have MBAs. Not all of them, but a majority of them do. And then so for me, it was like, okay, it makes the most sense. If I get it, that's you know, it's a check mark. You can't tell me no, you didn't have an MBA or something like that. So I went ahead and got it. And then so when I got it, that's when I transitioned to another oil job, but more so in a corporate role. So I went into the commercial space at the refinery. So at a refinery, that's considered downstream in the oil industry.
Okay.
And I switched over to and oil, the downstream is like the processing the oil, turning the oil that has been drilled up and making it into fuel, the gas fuel, jet fuel, asphalt, things of that nature. Midstream is like the transportation of bringing it from upstream where you drilled it up over
Okay.
there to downstream. So I went into the midstream industry as a commercial senior commercial analyst um, in downtown Houston, and so I got to experience that corporate
Yeah.
type of role. And yeah, I mean, about a year in, I was just like, yeah, like throughout this whole process, I've been working on so much stuff on the side, like building up Black Seed, you know, starting up my fitness brand, you know, just creating a lot of e-commerce stores, just like testing this, testing that. I've been doing it. Like my routine is typically I go to work, get off work, take about 2 to 3 hours at the gym, either lifting or hooping, and then rest of the evening working on my craft in a sense. So yeah, so I did that. So after I got my MBA, went over to a different job as a commercial analyst. And then in November of 2019, a week before my birthday, they ended up giving me a severance package. And what was crazy about it is they actually gave it to me a couple months early because I was planning to quit by February of last year. Because my philosophy in my head was, okay, I can't be after 30. I can't be in the corporate world. I gotta figure this out because like in inside of me, there's always been this thing of I got to branch out. I can't be working for somebody else. And like with all the things I'm doing, I can't give it its full attention because, I'm still sitting here working. Like one thing I always say is like, one of the things that would piss me off is it could be a beautiful day outside and I'm stuck inside doing whatever, crap. Right. And so it's like, I want the freedom to do all that stuff. And so I was like, so I made a pact with myself. By 30, I would have to be out the corporate world. And so my thought process, which would have been last year, was February was like our bonus season. I was going to take my bonus season. I was going to quit. They ended up giving me my severance package a couple months early. So it ended up just kind of like working out the same.
Because I've worked a ton of jobs, but I've never been in a job that offered me a severance package, either because I either quit or got fired. But like, what does a severance package is basically them not necessarily firing you, but like laying you off, but giving you something to go off so you can continue and kind of.
Yeah. So it's kind of like laying me off, but then they give you almost like some money, and it kind of like works on how long you've worked, and they did some kind of weird formula, but it ended up being a decent amount of money. And on the back end of it too is the plus side is technically you can like file for unemployment, right, and just milk that as long as you could. Yeah, with the severance package, it was crazy because they never really gave me a reason for why they ended up doing that. Like I switched over and had like a new manager, and they was just saying not a good fit. And my roommate at the time, he also worked at that same company, and he was saying the most information he could get out was I talked about real estate too much. Not that I was doing bad with my job, not that this and that, because I wasn't doing bad with my job. I mean, I wasn't going above and beyond, but I wasn't doing a bad job. And so like, but the thing was, I did talk about real estate a lot, made a lot of like real estate transactions while I was up there and stuff like that. But I never really let that affect my job. But I know that one of the things that was brought up is me not interacting much with like my peers. But
I think so. So you get your severance package. You're gone from the refinery company. Was that like seed money just to go and start other things, or did you just put that in savings and say, okay, I got savings, and then you just went to go start your businesses that way? Like, what was your first endeavor after leaving?
Well, I mean, so like I said, I've already had these endeavors like in the process the whole time. So these were that kind of like went into savings. And so this was me trying to, figure out the things that I was doing and see how well or if I can scale the money that I was making and see if that can really make that work. So yeah, I just kind of like kept it as savings. Okay. And it was crazy because like I was in a process of building a house here in Houston. And what I was doing, I was using a Fannie Mae homestyle loan. So what happens is it was a ran down house and near downtown Houston in the middle of the hood. And I went ahead and used a homestyle loan, which allows me to get the purchase price and the rehab price all in one, combined in one. And so yeah, unfortunately it's been over a year, and I've been working, just kind of like working through this house. But the problem was this house is supposed to allow me to live for free, because how I designed it was, the main house was where I was supposed to live, but I also designed a attachment to the house where I was going to do Airbnb out of.
Like a guest house, or
a guest house, but it was attached to the house, so kind of it's like an unofficial duplex.
Gotcha.
Like
Okay.
an unofficial duplex. So I was gonna do Airbnb, and I still plan to, but like I was gonna do Airbnb out of that house, and then allow my living expenses to damn near drop to zero, or very, very, very minimal. Um, so that was the thought process with that. Um, but yeah, the severance package has been helping pay pay that mortgage and storage fees and all that other stuff.
So you started a fund. It's called the Black Seed Group, correct?
Right, right.
So tell me a little bit about how that came to be and what made you want to go that route as far as actually managing money or being a fund manager.
Yeah, so back in like 2017, one of the things, so it kind of like Blackseed started off more so on the stock side. I noticed that a lot of my peers weren't really investing like that, stocks, real estate, or anything like that. So I was like, all right, what's one way I could get people to invest? Started off with doing free consultations. We'll meet up with people at like a local Starbucks or whatever. Teach them about stocks, let them know which brokerage accounts they can open up with, things of that nature. Got good feedback, but overall, like some of the people still wouldn't open up their brokerage accounts. So I was like, well, all right, what's the best way to almost force people to, to invest? And so that's kind of how I went the route of starting an investment club. So I have skin in the game, they have skin in the game, and it allows people to build that one, have that trust factor with me that, because I've been investing since 2010, have that just access to someone like me that does invest, and in the meantime they can learn about the stock market, how to invest, and grow their own portfolio. So I've had a few people that never invested before join the club and then started their own personal brokerages outside, and I was like, that's, to me, that was like one of the best things to hear, because like I, in a sense, helped change their family's trajectory, because now they're over here having a confidence to invest in the stock market and things of that nature. Because a lot of people, they just kind of hear about stocks and things and think that's like the white man's game, or something of that nature. But it's like, no, this thing is for everybody. So yeah, I started it that way. Was doing it for about 2.5 years, and then last year I went ahead and try to relay it over to the real estate side. So I ended up buying a home in Memphis with a few people that put money up, and it allowed a couple of people, once again, that never would have been able to invest in a house, to get equity in the home. And so we was able to buy the house cash. It was on Section 8, so we're getting guaranteed money from the government. Was already rehabbed or already got a tenant inside, so it was like a win-win situation. And so I was like, this thing works pretty well. Like I need to scale this up. You know what I mean? You see people like Grant Cardone. He has his funds and things of that nature. So I was like, yeah, let me try to figure this out. Let me go ahead and do what's necessary to make this, in a sense, legal, so that I can do this on a bigger scale. And that's kind of how we got introduced. I saw you were, doing the similar situation, and he was able to lace me up with some game that helped me as well. So yeah, that with that, I was able to set up everything, and it's called the Black Sea Revitalization Fund One. The intent is pretty much to invest in the hoods of Memphis and in Houston, allow people to, in a sense, stay, but make the places, still affordable, make them nice. And, even if we put it on Section 8, for the investors, what's happening is you're doing social impact. You're not pushing out anybody in the community, but you're also getting guaranteed, your investment is still safe because you're getting guaranteed money from the government. You know what I mean? And then in the meantime, hopefully the tenants are doing what's necessary to, improve their life, and, one day not have to be on, Section 8 and things of that nature. So, I think it was killing two birds with one stone with that. Just and being able to create that social impact was something why I wanted to start the fund.
That's dope. So you got 10 years. You said you've been investing since 2010. So 10 years of trading stocks, ETFs as well, right? Or just stocks?
ETF, yeah. So I do more so with stocks. I do more so buy and hold than actual trading. My philosophy is buy hold.
That was my next question. Because I'm exactly the same way. Like when it comes to stocks, it's more about buy something than long-term hold.
Right.
So stocks, ETFs, real estate. What was your first trade? So I go back into the early times. What was the first trade or your first purchase of a stock or ETF? that lets you know, like, you know what, I'm gonna keep feeding this thing? Like, what was that?
It was crazy. So in 2010, I started my second internship. It was considered a co-op. I was working at the Toyota manufacturing plant in San Antonio, and you're hearing the coworkers in a sense talking about retirement plans and investing in the stock market. So I'm curious. I'm looking around, and I opened up an account with Vanguard.
Vanguard, okay.
And yeah, and I opened an account with Vanguard, and I didn't know what I was doing. Like when it comes to investing in me, I just do it and figure it out later. So I opened up with a bank account with Vanguard, ended up opening a retirement account, and so to purchase one of the mutual funds, it was like 3,000. So I saved up 3,000 and purchased the Vanguard Wellington fund, and kept funding that, and it made money. You continue to make money. So after that, like I finished the co-op. I kind of like stopped because that was the only job I had. I was still in college, but I ended up funding it later once I did graduate and have a job. So I knew kind of like, yeah, this is it. And honestly, it is also perfect timing because 2010 was a perfect time to start investing in the stock market again because it just went like that. So yeah, you couldn't really miss if you started investing back then.
It's funny, I kind of see that as the same way now. Like if anybody bought stocks or ETFs in 2020, you could literally just take a dart and just throw it. And because everything was so down, like even if something doesn't even, even something's underperforming, right? If it just climbs back up 20 or 30%, and it's still underperforming for what it was at its 52-week high, you could still make money.
Oh, absolutely.
And it was like, I'm not sure how long it's gonna last. It kind of is climbing back up. I mean, I made my first investments in the stock market in 2020. And I dumped about 30,000 into some stocks and into some ETFs. And the ETFs, I'm up 79%.
That's on eat that, and that's on a diversified.
Yeah. Oh,
you know what I mean?
and the stocks, it's up, I think, like 30 something. And it was just like, okay, this is because we're in the market that we're in.
Right.
If things are when things do kind of get back to normal, of course, there's going to need to be a lot more of analyzing stocks, whether they're 10Qs, 10Ks. Pretty sure you know all that terminology. But yeah, I feel you. Investing in 2010, I wish that I was as aggressive back then, because 2010 I was still in college, finishing up college, was still trying to just enjoy myself, have fun and stuff like that. So I wasn't really too focused on business. But so as far as like your fund, the Black Seed Group, are you going to focus on real estate and stocks, or are you thinking of diversifying to other things too? Because with funds, you can literally raise money to do anything.
Right.
So is that what your focus is, just those two industries, or have you ever considered like doing other things as well?
So my ideal company or vision for a Black Seed would to be similar to Blackstone, where we have our hands in everything. So obviously it starts off with the things that like the real estate and the stocks, but I want to be acquiring businesses. I want to be investing in other businesses, so it's like having your hands in every pot, but you just gotta kind of have to start somewhere, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So I literally, before I started my fund, before I co-founded the first fund that we started 2 years ago, back in 2014, I sent applications into Blackstone. Because I was in New Jersey. They were 20 minutes away.
Right.
I sent applications to Blackstone, to BlackRock, to the Steinberg Group, like everything. I was like, you know what? Let me just get an internship or any way that I can just get in the door so I can just see how they do this thing. I don't need an important position. I don't need to be getting paid 80,000 a year. I'll take a 15,000 a year stipend. Just let me get in here and see what they're doing, because what they do is amazing. It's freaking amazing. They're VCs, angel investors. They buy businesses. They do LBOs, leverage buyouts. They do it all under that same roof. And that's what makes them, I think, the largest fund in the United States, maybe top 5 or within the top 10 in the world.
Yeah.
So that's super, super dope. That it's funny because like sometimes I get so stuck in my head with like researching things and talking to myself, and sometimes it feels like nobody else knows about these companies but me. You know, like I don't think I've heard somebody else say Blackstone out loud in like the last 3 years.
Right.
You know?
They're huge. They're huge. And
Also,
it is crazy because, like, you know, you were mentioning earlier about how you were like filling out positions, you know, trying to get into the company. And it's crazy because a lot of those companies won't let us in, even if, you know, you have kind of like credentials. If you don't have either the connections to kind of like get in or fit their mold, you're pretty much not getting in. And so it's one of those things where you got to create your own. You know what I mean? And that's one of the things that I've always been kind of like good at, and I have no problem doing. So like for me, there's no way, like even companies out here, I remember applying to some of them, but I wasn't really going to get an interview because I didn't technically have that experience resume wise for what they will see, even though I technically been doing all of this stuff just at a smaller scale. So yeah.
that's crazy. So like of your friends, if I'm not mistaken, earlier you said you're the first people you went to see if you could raise capital from were like friends or people you knew, coworkers, people that were kind of at the same level as you.
Yeah. So yeah, pretty much people at the same level as me. One of the things that I'm trying to do now is get to the point where kind of like networking into the quote unquote accredited investors that would be able to fund the bigger amounts. But when I was raising the funds earlier on, it was just almost on a very smaller scale. I learned earlier on with the stock side and even with buying the house with the people is like, if I'm going to endure the headache, I might as well do it with a lot more money. So, yeah.
So what was that conversation like? Because I know when I first started, I tried to do the same thing. You know, I went to a lot of my friends, was like, hey guys, let's yeah, we were in college. I told my friends, I had a group of like 16 friends,
Mhm.
and we all had student loans. So we were all getting student loan refund checks.
Right.
They were gonna be between like 1,500 to like 3,000. And I remember we were in like I think it was a group me chat, and I was like, hey guys, man, we're about to get our student loan checks. Let's all pull this together and put it on a down payment on a multifamily in Newark, New Jersey. And they all said no. They all were like, nah, like they all did not want to part with that $1,500 to $2,000. And so that's what made me say, okay, I got to go find out how to make my down payment money on my own because I can't.
Mhm.
So how were you able to convince them, or if you didn't convince them, like what was that conversation like? What did you actually say when you were trying to pitch this to your circle?
Yeah, it's actually interesting because I don't. So whenever I made the, in a sense, pitch, it was like a request over social media, like, "Hey, I plan to invest this. You know, if you're looking to join, let me know, and then we could talk about it." And you know, the good thing that kind of happened was, at least with the stock side, you know, whenever I started the investment club, it started with 24 people, and that's just 24 people that pretty much trusted me. They kind of like seen how I worked in the past, but it was pretty much based off of trust. You know what I mean? And so with the stock side, and we continue to grow, we're growing, and so like there's a little bit of you know, trust there. You could see the records there. And so when it went to the real estate side, just similar situation, just being able to show people that, yo, you know, I'm not a newbie at it. Like I purchase homes, I have rental properties. You know, I've done a flip before. You know, so I've made the mistakes. Now I'm kind of like ready to take on investors' capital. Um, and so like just talking to the people, I just kind of pretty much spoke to people, and what they were doing was, if they were ready, you know, I'm letting them know, like, this is what's happening. You might not get dividends for this amount, you know, just laid it on the table. And the people that did invest, in all honesty, is the exact same thing as the people that start investing with me on the stock side, and those trust. You know what I mean? And so yeah, so one of the things, like when it comes to getting it with an accredited investor, they kind of want to see that experience too on a little bit bigger scale, and that's where it gets kind of hard, at least from my experience, convincing them. But it's something that I think that will change around here pretty soon.
One of the ways that I found to get over that is that to target investors that are overseas.
Mm.
The reason being is because overseas investors, for the most part, their capital markets aren't like here, and their assets, whether it's real estate, they don't have programs like FHA or like the program that you used, or so pitching to overseas investors, they're more willing. It's not really necessarily considered a risk investing with a new fund manager in the States.
Mhm.
It's more of like they're mitigating their risk,
By
keep their capital there.
right,
Right. So I believe this summer I'm going to start running radio ads on Cool FM and Echo FM, which are popular radio stations in Lagos, Nigeria. I'm not sure if you've heard of those before. The African market, the investors in Africa, they are highly, highly, highly disregarded.
Mhm.
People act like there's no
money there.
capital, and some of the most capital is there. And so that's what I learned was a great way. And I started reaching out to a lot of investors in Hong Kong. One of the reasons why I'm moving to Miami in a week is because Miami's kind of the headquarters from where South American investors come when they come to the States. It's right there, and so definitely reaching out to international investors can definitely work for you, especially when it comes to running ads over there. If you're running Facebook ads or Google ads, it's cheaper to run those ads in third world countries than it is in the States. So, yeah. So $1,000 ad spend. I mean, I did a test. When I first moved to Atlanta, I did a test. I ran an ad, a Facebook ad targeted Atlanta, Georgia. And then I ran that same ad in Lagos, Nigeria. And I think per click, it was like $1 per click in Atlanta. When I looked at the Lagos, Nigeria, it was 8 cents per click. And so I said, that is ridiculous. Right. So my budget, I could literally hit 92% more people by just changing the location, So that's something that I just had picked up just by trying stuff.
Right.
So where do you see your company, the Black Seed Group, and all your endeavors being in the next 5 years by 2026?
By 2026, so one of the things that I guess I don't look that far along just yet. One of the things I try to focus on is, in a sense, 2 years, and then scale it on forward. And so one of the things, at least for Black Seed, is to get into the space of getting the fund up and running, where we have that true proof of concept, and then probably most likely doing a couple of more funds where it's not just investing in the hoods. There's other things we would like to invest in as well. One of the things I would like to do as well is kind of like bring back the stock side. So I had to shut the investment club down whenever COVID hit, just because the brokerage that we were using, the investors in there decided to kind of like pull out because there was like uncertainty. Honestly, should have kept it, but so I would like to bring that back, but I would make it a little bit different, because honestly, whenever I started doing the stock side of things, like I was doing that thing for free. Like this is me, like my, me doing pro bono work, trying to get people to invest. But I would definitely change it up where, I wouldn't have as many people doing or having as much of a say so in certain things. It's more so just give me your capital, we'll invest it for you kind of thing. And then get to the point as well as licensing, like trying to get some tech so that we can license it out to different people. And that's something that I'm currently working on right now. So like, just different type of real estate apps that would be able to utilize that and make some money in the digital space in that aspect. And then, if that scales forward, by 2026, hopefully I'm acquiring some of these companies, so going international and all that. Because one of the things I would like to do is like perfect timing you said that, is I would love to invest in Nigeria. Like it's untapped. It's untapped, and just people just don't understand it. And it's like, why can I not, take advantage of the resources that we have there? Like I'm from there, I have citizenship there. Like there's no reason not to do well. And obviously you utilize those funds to help the villages where we're from, and all of that. So
People have no idea how far $250,000 could go in our villages back home. Like, that could do wonders. It could build some really nice stuff just because the cost of materials is lower. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's not because it's like so third world and so whatever, but in different parts of the world, cost of materials and labor is lower. So when your expenses are lower, your profit or your capital gains or the things that you can build, you can do some great things. Me and my mom started building our home back in Lagos about 3 years ago. It's a duplex, 60 grand.
Yeah.
To build, like for everything, the entire
Right.
thing, $60,000. And so, try that here in the States. Land plus building materials, labor, and build a really nice modern duplex.
Right.
Not gonna be 60 grand.
Right.
But yeah, hey man, I appreciate you joining me for this episode, man. I would love to work with you, man, to see if there's some type of way where our funds can collaborate in some type of way, man. I also want to send over some documents to you. I know you said you kind of wanted to open up your fund to where you can kind of do all types of things as far as just take investor money, and then you guys have a system. And so I have some wording that my attorney put in my PPM that I think you could use. So I'll send that over to you in the email. And hey man, drop your social media for everybody so they can follow you.
Absolutely. So on Instagram, you can follow me at Money Madu. That's MoneyMadu. On Twitter, at Real Money Madu. So just REAL and then Money Madu. Yeah, those are my two primary social media that I utilize. I'm not too much on Clubhouse, but you can see me on Clubhouse at Money Madu as well. I just updated my website. So if you go to moneymadu.com, you can see everything that I do. Would like to get into more speaking engagements this year. I have two this year that I have coming up, but I would like to obviously do more and get some paid ones. So definitely check me out on my website. You can contact me or DM me anytime on Instagram and Twitter.
Dope, sounds good. So hey, shout out to all you guys that are watching this. If you got some value out of this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And we're gonna see you guys on the next video. Peace. Thanks, man. Appreciate you.
For sure.